On this episode of China Uncensored, I will not sanction these sanctions. China defends good buddy Pakistan from mean old Trump. And who else but a Chinese human rights lawyer would be guilty of subverting state power? This is China Uncensored. Welcome to China Uncensored. I'm your host, Chris Chappell. On Wednesday, a huge typhoon struck southern China, including Hong Kong and Macau. 10 people were killed. Hong Kong authorities did their best to make sure their residents were safe, telling them not to go outside and exercise or go swimming. What are you doing? Get out of the water! The nearby gambling hub of Macau fared less well than Hong Kong. Streets were flooded and a lot of buildings lost power. Fortunately, that meant the casinos had to shut down, saving thousands of gamblers from losing a ton of money. We're going to talk more about Hong Kong and Macau later in the show. But in the meantime, the Chinese Communist Party wants you to know how they feel. That's why they invented the phrase, hurt the feelings of the Chinese people. So the rest of the world would better understand when they've said or done something they weren't supposed to. According to one Chinese blogger, state-run People's Daily has used the phrase in reference to 19 different countries and organizations, ranging from the United States to the Nobel Committee and to NATO. What's that, Shelley? That was back in 2008. Well, who knows how many more countries and organizations have hurt the feelings of the Chinese people since then. And you should be very concerned about the feelings of the Chinese people. Why, just this week, a professor at the University of Sydney found out the hard way. He dared to make a bold statement that China has no right to disputed territory that both China and India claim. Okay, it wasn't so much of a statement, it was more like he showed a map. And it wasn't so much a map of the disputed territory per se, it was a world map. And it wasn't his world map, it was just the first one that shows up when you Google world map, and he put it on a PowerPoint slide. And it wasn't for a geography class or anything, it was for an IT class. And it was 18 months ago. But if you zoom way in, you can see that the blurry borders show India's claim, not China's. So Chinese students in his class began denouncing him on WeChat, and it became a big thing because, he hurt the feelings of the Chinese people. So this week, he was forced to publicly apologize. I wonder if students suspected him of using an anti-China map because his name is Kimji Vakjiani and he looks like this. Moving on, with so much focus on feelings, it's no wonder that most of the China news this week involved the Chinese regime telling the rest of the world how it felt about something else. For instance, the U.S. putting sanctions on Chinese companies and individuals supporting Kim Jong-un's Fantasyland paradise. China was not happy about what it called the U.S.'s mistake.
What the United States has done is not helpful to the resolution of the issue, and is not beneficial to mutual trust and cooperation between China and the United States on this matter. We ask the United States to immediately stop its mistake.
The sanctions are the second round since June. They target Chinese companies that work with North Korea, including 3 that imported its coal and another one that helped finance its ballistic missiles program. And speaking of North Korea's ballistic missile program, China was not happy about the latest U.S.-South Korea military drills. The ones where they prepare for Kim Jong-un following through on its threats to nuke South Korea and the U.S.
We think that South Korea and the United States holding joint drills is not beneficial to easing current tensions, nor to the efforts by all sides to promote talks.
That's a bit of an overreaction, considering they were the least aggressive and quite possibly lamest joint military drills ever. They were just sitting around simulating drills on computers at the Korea Battle Simulation Center. Meanwhile, in Virginia on Monday, President Trump outlined his new Middle East strategy, and then he dropped this bomb. A figurative bomb. Probably need to be clear about that.
We can no longer be silent about Pakistan's safe havens for terrorist organizations, the Taliban, and other groups that pose a threat to the region and beyond.
I wonder if this hurt the feelings of Pakistan's biggest ally and trading partner, China. Let's check in again with the Chinese Foreign Ministry.
Pakistan is on the front line in the struggle against terrorism. It has actively made efforts and great sacrifices to combat terrorism for years, and has made important contributions to safeguarding regional and global peace and stability.
I'm sure India might disagree, but China and India aren't exactly seeing eye to eye right now, considering their most recent bilateral meeting included border soldiers throwing rocks at each other. To be clear, that's the same dispute we talked about last week, but now there's video. So as you can see, they are definitely throwing rocks at each other. Or playing capture the flag. Really, it could be either one. But feelings were probably hurt on both sides. And speaking of feelings, have you been wondering how the Chinese regime feels about the U.S. State Department's latest International Religious Freedom Report? It slammed China with harsh language, calling China one of 7 countries of particular concern. Other countries include North Korea and Iran. Well, China is back with some harsh words for the U.S.
Everyone has seen that the facts prove the United States is not totally perfect.
She was referring to what happened in Charlottesville, because a handful of idiots shouting "Jews will not replace us" and ruining tiki torches for everyone is exactly equivalent to the ruling Chinese regime killing tens of thousands of religious believers and then selling their organs on the black market. The point is, China has great religious freedom.
The Chinese government fully respects and protects people's religious freedom according to the law. People from all ethnic groups and regions fully possess religious freedom according to the law.
Speaking of rule of law in China, a prominent human rights lawyer just confessed on state-run television to subverting state power.
我煽动颠覆国家政权、推翻社会主义制度的行为触犯了刑法。
In the past, Jiang Tianyong had accused the Chinese regime of torturing another prominent human rights lawyer. It was a brave thing to do, like a lamb calling out a wolf for eating other lambs. He also defended blind human rights activist Chen Guangchen and Falun Gong practitioners. This guy had some real guts, is what I'm saying. And then he was secretly detained and probably tortured for 10 months. And now he's a reformed man. This week, he clarified on state-run media that all the things he said about the Chinese regime torturing that other human rights lawyer were just lies, and he made them up to curry favor with foreign media. You see, he was deceived after being indoctrinated by the bourgeois Western constitutional system. Those were words he spoke during his trial that were totally not scripted at all. He deeply regrets his actions. So who else do you think is guilty of so-called hurting the feelings of the Chinese people? Leave your comments below. Thanks for watching China Uncensored. I'm Chris Chappell. See you next time. Hey, you know what would really hurt my feelings? If you don't go check out ChinaUncensored.tv. That's where we upload full half-hour episodes of China Uncensored for free every Friday. You would have seen this episode and so much more. ChinaUncensored.tv.